everybody, and welcome to the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association live event here at Red Stripe. My name is Lisa Hanna. I will be your host for this evening, and I'm also the ambassador for Exports Month. And this evening is our last event. And what we're going to do this evening is talk to you about all things export. In other words, who is exporting, why they're exporting, what Jamaica needs to do to build their export so that we can make more money for the country. Because truly, 3 million people is a market that's just way too small to create any meaningful wealth, and we need to sell to the rest of the world. So beginning in this particular segment, we have a very, very nice lady. She is the Chief Commercial Officer at Jamaica Producers, Ms. Maya Walrun. And to my left, we also have the Senior General Manager of Manufacturing for Grace, Mr. Carl Barnett. And welcome. I want to start off by asking you first, Maya, what is the importance of Jamaica having more markets to sell products and products to sell? Why should Jamaicans understand that this is an important thing?
Well, I think you touched on it in your intro, Lisa. At the end of the day, to grow wealth and to have that wealth trickle down to all of our citizens in Jamaica, we really have to have scale, right? And Jamaica is positioned in a part of the Caribbean that has access to some of the largest markets in the world. It's positioned right next to some of our largest markets in the Caribbean, many of whom speak different languages to us, etc. And we have the ability through all kinds of networks to be able to do commerce between ourselves and those markets.
What a lot of people don't realize, they see the name Jamaica Producers, but they don't realize that it's an authentic Jamaican company. So why don't you tell our viewers online some of the things that you produce and some of the markets that you export to from right here?
Sure. So Jamaica Producers is very proudly a Jamaican company with global ambitions. We have a number of businesses in the food and drink division. That includes our JP Snacks, which many Jamaicans would be familiar with, one of our bigger brands, St. Mary's. But we also have Latin brands produced by that snacks companies, such as Carlos. And we do white label, private label snack products for a number of companies as well. We have Tortuga, which is the world's leading food, travel retail food product. And so people know it as their beloved rum cake, but we're now into spirit cakes. And our companies go as far as juice companies out of the Netherlands and out of Spain.
So where can Jamaicans see Jamaica Producer products so that they understand what you mean about a global scale? Because in order for us to do well, we have to start thinking globally and not locally.
Absolutely. So you will find our products all over the world, but in particular, we have a very strong presence in North American markets, so right across the US and Canada, as far as Alaska. We have presence in Europe, many parts of Europe, and of course in the UK. We have a number of businesses based there as well. And right across the Caribbean. So Jamaica is our biggest consumer market in the Caribbean, but we have ever-growing business out of the Dominican Republic. We have, and we sell into all of the markets right through into Latin America.
Thank you. Carl, Grace, a brand that Jamaica loves. I mean, all of us have grown up seeing Grace. But you not only do local products, you also, as a company, export to other markets as well. Tell us a little bit about how you've grown in terms of manufacturing and what is a vision of the company moving forward to take it to higher heights.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, GraceKennedy is proudly celebrating our 100th anniversary this year.
Congrats.
And Manufacturing is extremely important to the company, and we've invested a lot in manufacturing. You had mentioned, why is it important to us? Well, as Maya said, it builds wealth. And we look at, from our farmers who produce from scallion or peppers, callaloo that we're eventually converting into various products such as jerk seasoning or canned callaloo, or our ackee farmers, canned Grace ackee, and it's exported to the US, Canada, the rest of the Caribbean, Belize, UK, and it's touching so many lives here in Jamaica in terms of job opportunities and enabling the diaspora to enjoy our products here and abroad.
Well, that is one of the things that we've been talking about, and certainly some of the things that I've been talking about and trying to encourage the generations coming behind us to understand the importance of controlling the value chain from the beginning to the end. In other words, how do we pick winners, especially for Jamaica to compete with internationally? So value-added agriculture is what you are heavily investing in. Tell us some of the things that you have done and will continue to do to strengthen farmers, for example, out in the rural areas.
Well, we have 2 manufacturing facilities that are predominantly agricultural type products. One is in Hounslow, St. Elizabeth, and then we have one in Denby, Clarendon. In Hounslow, St. Elizabeth, we are doing pepper mash, scallion mash, and some of it is being exported to the UK to produce hot pepper sauces. GraceKennedy owns a brand called Encona, which is the #1 hot pepper sauce brand in the UK. In addition, we are producing jerk seasoning at our plant in Denby, Clarendon. Also callaloo, canned callaloo. We're also doing ackee. Then you get into meat division, which is Grace Food Processors, who proudly makes Vienna sausages, frankfurters, bacon, but its home started with pig processing, and we still do some of that, which enables the farmers to supply us with various cuts that we utilize to make Grace ham, bacon, various round products. So there's a lot of individuals that are being touched by manufacturing.
Well, that's important, and Maya touched on it in terms of the multiplier effect for farmers, and I know the JMEA is big on helping in terms of manufacturing, and we're going to talk to some other people later. But the multiplier effect, how do we get more scale in our marketplace? How do we get us to become less of a country of producing samples so that you can have a constant throughput to make your pepper sauce, to give you the raw materials that you need for your banana chips? Because as the situation currently exists, God forbid if we were to get a hurricane this season, a lot of your supply chain would be wiped out. So what do we need to do to improve, certainly this local supply chain from a policy perspective and even just from a practical perspective?
I think it is important to think through business continuity, right? So some of it is about working with farmers in terms of their practices. Some of it is about diversifying in different areas of the country so that if a hurricane hits you on the eastern side of the island, you still have production happening on the western side, etc. Some of it is about building inventory, so working with financiers to give you the ability to stock your raw materials and stock your finished goods, because there are going to be times when you do have breaks in being able to produce. I mean, we've just gone through a global pandemic, and one of the things that we had to do a lot of planning around is what happens if our bakery, God forbid, a lot of our staff are out and we can't continue to do several runs of production a day, and so you have to have good planning around that. You have to have.
But how do we become world leaders?
Sure.
That's what I want to talk about. How do we become world beaters in our product? In other words, if you want coconuts, you look to Thailand. If you want potatoes, you can probably see 1 million acres of potatoes in Idaho or Iowa. What do we need to do in Jamaica to become world leaders in production of any one particular thing? So if I'm saying, well, pepper, Jamaica is the leader in producing Scotch bonnet pepper, where do we have to go to? Because both of you have to utilize agricultural products, and I think we've been doing agriculture the same way for the last 300 years.
Lisa, I'll use an example from Grace. I think it's Will. We made a strategic decision a few years ago to bring back Grace Tropical Rhythm to Jamaica. It was being produced in the U.S. For the U.S. market. By doing so, the brand Jamaica is so strong that the Grace Tropical Rhythms has just exploded, and it's done extremely well in the U.S. market. And we're actually exporting significantly more Grace Tropical Rhythms than we're actually utilizing here in Jamaica. And what does it do for us? You mentioned it before, but in manufacturing, there's something called absorption. And what it does is it actually is bringing down the cost. The more units that we're producing brings down the unit price of each product so that we're significantly more competitive. And we need to have the structure with the assistance of the government so that we can become significantly more competitive and open up a lot more markets. One thing that we could be looking at is what trade agreements do we have with others? And sometimes people feel that some markets are very protected, but it's something that we seriously have to look at.
Do you think that even our own trade policy is modern enough? In other words, do you think that Jamaica promotes a more protectionist market rather than thinking that we need to push more exports and reciprocal trade? So rather than build out and help and incentivize producers and manufacturers, we want to block other people from coming in. Do you want to say anything about that? Rather than incentivize our own manufacturers here?
I don't know if I'm getting into that ant's nest. I would say that I think we have, from our perspective, a fair playing field, right? We certainly have competition from other parts of the Caribbean in terms of the types of foods that we produce. But I feel that in large part we are competitive, and some of it is about choosing how and what markets you want to be in, and how you add value to a product, right? So for Jamaica producers, it's less about producing at the lowest cost, and competing that way. For us, it's really about how do you add value so that your products are sought after, not just here and not just necessarily by our diaspora markets, but how do we really attract, a consumer in Texas or a consumer in Alaska to want a Tortuga cake. And we think a lot about innovation in our product lines to make sure that we are having that kind of appeal.
Well, I buy that. I buy that we need to have more push in terms of innovation, but you're a large company. And for that small manufacturer that wants to start, certainly doing something, it's how do we structure and recalibrate our economy and our policies to give and buttress those persons who need that start. if you're just joining us, welcome to the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association Live, where we're talking about Jamaica becoming more global in its manufacturing and making sure that we just don't sell to 3 million people, our own population, but that we sell to the world. And in this segment, we had Maya Walrun, who is a Chief Commercial Officer at Jamaica Producers with some of the brands that you know, like St. Mary's and Tortuga. And we have the Senior General Manager of Manufacturing for GraceKennedy, Mr. Carl Barnett, and we want to congratulate Grace for celebrating 100 years in the business. Big up yourself, enough respect, and all of those different things. So stay with us, because we're going to continue in the next segment, where you will meet some other manufacturers and also get some advice from those persons who can help you with resources if you're a small manufacturer. And I know on my Instagram site, persons were asking about cannabis. So we're going to have some of that discussion too, so stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association live event, where we're talking to some of our local manufacturers about how they manufacture, produce, some of the things that they're doing, and how they're selling to the rest of the world, which is so important to create wealth for our country and so many Jamaicans who live here. Because at the end of the day, if we have that kind of value-added input where you're using Jamaican products to create something else that we can sell to the world, is how we're going to create real wealth and prosperity for our people. Joining me in this segment, I'm Lisa Hanna, by the way, your host. Joining me in this segment is Sean Garbutt from Walkerswood. He's a group marketing manager. And we have Mr. Lawson, who is all things business development for the EXIM Bank. Those are the people you really want to know. Sean is good, but they need the money from over there. So. Yeah. But I love the Walkerswood story, not only because it is in my constituency, but I love the Walkerswood story because it really represents a true Jamaican agricultural facilitator. In other words, they're using 5 million pounds of local produce, pepper, scallion, pimento seed. And they're exporting up to, last time I checked, annually it was 450 containers. And they want to get to 1 million containers.
Well, 1,000.
Huh?
1 million would be nice, but 1,000 is the next
target. Sorry. See my head gone.
Yeah.
I want you to see it to
like
1 million.
the thing, though.
But certainly you want to get to 10 million pounds.
Correct.
10 million pounds of produce that they want to get to. And they need that throughput. But I'm not going to do Sean's talking. Sean, tell us how you've improved the life of a small farmer in this country, first of all.
Right. Okay. Well, firstly, we start, of course, with the surrounding community that we're in. As you know, Walkerswood is a very traditional farming community. And what we do is we work very closely with them. We let them know our plans for each year, because everything becomes clear land, plant seeds, grow. And what we have done is guarantee, like the farmers in our community, a certain allocation of our pepper needs each year. So they can kind of set a pot on the stove, knowing that as long as they can provide it, we will buy that amount.
You give them a guaranteed market.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And, you know, we've worked with a large network. We have farmers across the island of Jamaica. As you know, each parish kind of has its strengths of what it grows. St. Elizabeth is scallion, Clarendon is peppers, St. Mary. And, you know, we have always encouraged. We have a 75,000 square foot facility, and we stand open waiting on farmers to bring us produce. We are not farmers. We respect farmers. Farming is hard. And, you know, it's just providing them with knowledge, providing them with a base, and just connecting with them and letting them know, listen, if I put you on the list, then I'm also looking for you to come and bring me your produce as you're looking to me to buy your produce. And it's worked very well. I mean, you know, we have a little naughty and nice list, and the good guys stay on the list and always get preference. And if you're not so nice, you kind of get bumped down the road at certain times. But we've been very inclusive in how we deal with farmers. It has become a little bit more challenging in terms of global food safety standards and traceability and just record keeping. So,
explain to our viewers what you mean by that. And it's important that you explain it because for export, that's critical.
Definitely. So every bottle that we produce has a batch code or a product reference on it. And we are able to identify from that code the farmer that provided the scallion, the farmers that provided the pepper, who we got the pimento from, because if there's ever an issue, we need to be able to trace it right back to source, and likewise trace it from when we sold it, who did it go to, as far as we can kind of follow. And with that, what the requirements are is that we now self-audit our farmers. So we have to provide reports for like the FDA, for US sales, you know, global certification companies to allow for export to UK, Canada. And, you know, what will be coming soon is that the farmers themselves will be audited. So they'll come and say, well, Walkerswood, you're buying, you know, 1 million pounds of scallion a year from farmer John Brown in St. Elizabeth. We now want to see his farm, his records. And those records include when did he clear his land, when did he plant, what is he treating his problems with, the manufacturer's data for those items, down to when him wash the truck before him put the produce in it to come to me. So we kind of help with that process. So those
kinds of international standards have to be fast-tracked within our agricultural system.
Definitely.
And you produce sauces, jerk seasoning, barbecue sauces, etc. I'm going to come to you in a minute, Mr. Lawson.
No problem.
But one of the things that I remember visiting your factory is we had a conversation about getting the throughput.
Right.
And the fact that we need some mother farms for Scotch bonnet pepper.
Yes.
Are you able, do you see in the foreseeable future getting up to that 1,000 containers? And I know you do, but what do you need to get there?
Right. Well, it's mostly about produce. We've kind of built out our capacities in terms of the production side of it. But it really comes to just getting a regular, steady supply of produce, because it's all about fulfillment rates right now. You know, if you want to sell into any major chain, they want to know that, all right, you need to provide 95% or above of what they order from you. And, you know, you're a blip. A Walkerswood for a Walmart or a Tesco in the UK, you know, we're a small item in a huge thing. So your score is what determines whether you stay on the shelf, whether they say, guys, you've done all right. You have any more products that you want to sell us? So, you know, kind of keeping those fulfillments, and it all comes back to being able to supply. They don't want to hear that, well, we had a hurricane in Jamaica, you know, and sad story. No, sorry, didn't get any Walkerswood. Your rate's fallen below 95% and you're kicked out. And then if you're lucky, you can pay them big money to get back in.
So just speak to persons out there who are wondering, they want to get into agriculture, but they don't know what to plant, because there's this concept, I can use my constituents. Everybody run to plant cabbage, or everybody running to plant sweet potato.
Right.
Tell them what you want them to plant.
Well, I mean, our core produce items, of course, are scallion, yellow Scotch bonnet, red Scotch bonnet, pimento berries, yellow onion. We, of course, are trying to also amplify the other side of our business, which is Jamaican condiments, such as chutneys using mango, sorrel, Other fruit-based tomato we have in a few products, and we want to get more and more of those items from here in Jamaica. I mean,
Great. Mr. Lawson.
Winston is fine.
Winston.
Mr. Lawson is at home.
Winston.
I want to be able to call you Lisa.
You can call me Lisa.
And tell my children that I have, on a first name basis, with a prime minister.
Absolutely. Lord Jesus. You're going to get me mixed up now. Winston.
Yes, Lisa.
What do you feel, or how do you feel about funding agriculture? People hear about the EXIM Bank, but they don't know what you do.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I think first, importantly, is let me apologize on behalf of my MD. I know you had expected Lisa Bell. She's under the weather, so I want to apologize for her. Let me make clear, EXIM Bank is a wholly owned government organization. We have to make it very clear that we don't compete. We're not here to crowd out the private sector. What we are here to do is to fill gaps, right? And we do so aggressively where we see that mainstream banking is not filling the gap. That's our purpose. Our objective from day one for us is 1986, May 1986, where we have a mandate to enhance growth and development, job creation, and so on through an export-led economy. That's our primary purpose.
I love it.
We have had some widening of the mandate to incorporate not just exporters, but potential exporters and those along the value chains, people who are selling to you, because that's helpful to you as well. So we're a little bit broader now. As I said, we don't compete, but we look at the gaps and we ensure that we have facilities that provide, assistance financially to exporters towards this export-driven economy that we want.
So what constitutes, so if I come to you as Lisa and say, boy, Winston, watch out.
Yeah.
I have a liquor business and I want to export. I'm going to start up by doing half a container. How do I get your money? And how much are you willing to give me and at what interest rate?
So it's typically the same sort of requirements for business lending. You need to have your proposal, you need to have your supporting information, understand what your numbers are, how you're going to market, and so on. And based on that, we can look at some of the suite of products that we would have put together for you and which one would have benefited you.
So how many exporters have you facilitated, certainly in the last year, for example, and tell us some of the things that you're doing? It's not a test, so you can just...
I was trying to remember. I know we did about 25, if I'm recalling well, and that would have amounted to a little over 8 billion of exports coming from that 25 just over the last year. Since inception, we have rolled out probably, is it $130 billion to the productive sector. Productive sector means the manufacturers and exporters as well. I was speaking earlier that I am still not very comfortable with the take-up, particularly from the smaller players.
They don't know.
Yeah.
And when they hear EXIM Bank, they think, it's a big business.
Yeah. Right.
A lot of small farmers would love the opportunity, and young people would love the opportunity who may not have access to the kinds of capital that's necessary, but they would love the opportunity for their cannabis production, or they'd love something else. In castor oil, I met a very unique young lady in St. Anne, and she does cold-pressed castor oil, and she does cold-pressed oils, coconut oil. And she feels really good to know that she exports a couple hundred every so often, but doesn't recognize that she has to get scale if she's going to really export to do something meaningful. But she needs the means of production to do it, and she needs staff. how do we get, is that somebody that you would try to help, for example?
So I will say to you, as a financier, we actually would require the actual business plan to be presented. All right? Our ears have been on the ground with the smaller players. We saw where they had some inadequacies in terms of pledging collateral towards the need for funding. We have responded. We have partnered with JMEA with a facility we call our Exporters Guarantee that allows EXIM Bank to stand in to meet up to 80% of the collateral inadequacies.
Yeah.
Just responding to the fact that the smaller players
and youth
have,
and young people,
yes.
young business people.
To be honest, Lisa, we're not there in terms of conventional agriculture. We are more agro-processing.
Yeah.
We took a look at the greenhouse farming, and we have put a foot in, and it's a start for us. I won't mention the project, but we have put our foot in and looking more at a greenhouse farm. But the conventional agriculture, we're not there as yet.
And hold that, because I want you to remind him of a farmer that you have in St. Elizabeth who delivers to you twice every Friday, I think it is, and say how much that person can make.
Well, like I said, this gentleman is a typical Jamaican farmer, industrious, hardworking, but his mission is to do better for his family. But yeah, I mean, he makes 2 trips on a Friday. He leaves St. Elizabeth at probably 4:30, 5 in the morning, loaded. But each week he collects a check of $500,000 to $700,000. And we had a lovely little company party a few years ago where we invited our farmers and key players. And when him come in him different car, not his delivery car, and him cha-cha outfit, you know, I was had to look twice and said, wait, that's you, Billy? And he's like, yeah, man. You know? So there is money in farming. You know what I mean? That's the thing, is that my concern, as I said to Lisa before, is that I don't see many younger farmers out there. And I think a lot of it is that they just see the dirty clothes and the dirt on the hands and figure, well, that's farming for you. You know, but no, that's the other side of farming, you know. But I would love to see you guys getting a little bit more involved on future forward farming. So I'm with you on terms of greenhouse, because the realities are that growing crops in Jamaica and most other places is going to become harder and harder. You know, hotter, drier, you know, more wet period, more dry period, and that's kind of where we also worry, is that what is that benefit? He said if a hurricane comes, you know, what's our plan B? And it can't be to just start all over again, you know. So how can we farm to protect ourselves from the environment? You know, the use of greenhouse, you know, technologies to enhance production.
It's such an enhancement.
That's why it's important.
Greenhouse farming has mitigated quite a number of the risks that you.
But more farmers need that, and they need adequate sources of water. So it's on the for Walkerswood, which is the agro-processing side of it, which is the export side, the final side of it, where you get that product out and you get the Jamaican brand out. But he's going to need an additional 500,000 pounds. Well, more than that. 5 million pounds.
5 million more pounds to make our target.
To make his target. Where are we going to get that 5 million pounds from? So I would like to encourage you to perhaps look at fast-tracking your future forward farming to help farmers, to help him scale up his production.
Definitely. Indeed. As I said, I've been honest. You know, the whole matter of the conventional farming is not in our sights.
No, but there's a myriad of agencies in Jamaica where I think if we harmonize them, you know, and utilize a JAMPRO, EXIM Bank, you know, customs, all the various areas, if we truly say we want to grow, well, then you can't have someone saying, I'm trying to help you here, and someone else juking you on your side on the other side. You know what I mean? So if we look at big picture, we should be about how can we promote, how can we help, who's going to take up this side and lift the farmers up so that he gets to a scale, and then he can approach you and say, guys, now I want a warehouse because I'm not selling Walkerswood just pepper. I want to sell them pepper mash. Or I want somebody to start working on yellow Scotch bonnet. That's our goal, right? But it's under attack. It's you worry about cross-hybridization. Sometimes you get these beautiful peppers, but they're not a use. It's like a sweet pepper. So, you know, who is going to do this, the science behind it? Tissue sampling and grow it, kind of like what the cannabis guys do. A mother plant that has the color, the heat, the flavor, and provide that stock to farmers.
But it goes back to, and we're wrapping up this segment, but it goes back to what Jamaica's value proposition is. I mean, what are we trying to do? How are we trying to compete? What are the products that we can compete in globally? Because we can't pick everything.
No.
So if we are going to compete with value-added agriculture and building more Walkerswoods, then you have to harmonize government policy to make sure that at all levels we incentivize the manufacturers who are doing this kind of production from the farmers right the way through. So you have to reorganize RADA. You have to make sure that the bureaucracy is out of the way so that the investments can take place at the production level, at the manufacturing level, that you can actually have incentives on your tools of trade for young people starting businesses. All of these things we have to think about if we are going to compete internationally. So don't go away. We have a lot more to talk about, and you have a lot more to learn. And if you are a producer or a manufacturer, make sure you call Winston Lawson.
Indeed.
At the EXIM Bank.
Indeed.
He has money to give you once you have your business proposal, and you can build your business, because that's what it's about. So stay with us.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Walkerswood bring the heat, we bring the flavor. It's summertime, Walkerswood, them spice, them hot and the spice, them ready. Summertime, pull up, them ready. Turn up the bass and treble. Pat it up, bubble, get the knife and fork on the double. We bring in the heat, we bring in the flavor. We bring in the heat, we bring in the flavor. We bring in the heat, we bring in the flavor. Walkerswood, summertime, we're taking over. Why choose when you can have both? Walkerswood, bringing the heat with flavor.
Hi and welcome back. And in this segment, it should be kind of interesting because we have two very diverse manufacturers here in Jamaica. One very large manufacturer and another manufacturer who is adding value and building scale. So to my left is Mr. Sean Wallace, and he's the head of commerce at Red Stripe, where we are here. And to my far left is Charles Barrett from Jamaica Teas. And everybody who know me knows that I drink 5 cups of tea a day. I'm a tea girl. Any kind of hot tea, I'm there. So I'm really happy to speak to Charles. I'm going to start with you, Charles, because nobody would think of Jamaica producing tea. You think of places like Rwanda and India, and why did you choose to do this? And tell us what kind of tea you produce.
Interesting. Definitely, Jamaican Teas has been in business since 1967. And at that time, we started with the Tetley brand. And all that we had was the black tea. But when the Mafoods, the father and son team of John and Adib Mafood, acquired Tetley Jamaica, which is now Jamaican Teas, they thought a lot of Jamaicans loved herbal tea or bush tea. And they just know that they love it because grandma said, good for you. You know, but then, you know, globalization, people were moving to larger cities, they didn't have much time. And we thought, but if people love traditional tea and they love the ones that their grandparents gave them, why couldn't we put it in a very convenient form for them? Whether they're living in the cities of North America or the UK, or right here in Jamaica in the larger cities. So they might not have the land to go and plant the stuff, but we can make it convenient.
So why
for you
not
to
call the name them or the tea them where you
Oh,
produce?
definitely. So
like fever grass.
Your good old ginger tea, your fever, your fever grass, your busy, your cerasy. The sorrel that you love at Christmas. We've made sorrel an all year round thing in Jamaica, both in terms of a hot beverage, and we also have the dried sorrel you can prepare to make your beverage, your normal cold beverage. So, and these we market under the Caribbean Dreams brand. And that brand we've seen grown from strength to strength after we launched it around about 1999, thereabout. And we're big market leaders there, about 40% in the share of market, and we're very proud of that.
Great. So where do you get some of your supplies from?
So we get some of them locally. And in fact, I'm going to give you a story. When we started out, we felt, okay, the local supplies could take the business where we wanted to. But because at the very onset, we set for ourselves that we want to become a big exporter, where at least 50% of our revenues would be earned outside of Jamaica, then we had to take a really deep look. So while we were getting some of the things like the cerasy and the lemongrass in Jamaica, things like ginger and peppermint, which were very big in terms of consumption domestically and in the Caribbean, and what Jamaican people and Caribbean people loved, we couldn't get them in the kind of quantities we wanted and at a reasonable price. And we had to divorce ourselves from that idea of sourcing everything in Jamaica because we want to be competitive. You raised it earlier at the top of the conversation. There are certain things that we just can't compete with if we're going to say use, premium arable land, and at the end of the day, we can't compete with the big boys overseas. And we felt that, we had to source them overseas, and that really catapulted us to become this huge or net exporter where 65% of our revenues come from exports.
That's excellent, and congratulations on that. I think that is remarkable, and I'm going to come back on a particular point that you raised, but I want to turn to Red Stripe. And I actually am going to ask you something that you're not going to think I would have asked you, because I'm not going to ask you about this product. I'm going to ask you about your production of cassava. Because one of the things I do know from your farm manager is that you've utilized very, very important farming techniques that have grown your yield exponentially. So how did you manage to put in place efficient mechanisms? And the reason why I'm asking you that, Sean, is because I want to show Jamaicans that you can actually have increased production in a short possible time.
No, I think it's a very important question. And first and foremost, of course, thank you for being here. I hope everybody's enjoying the facilities here at Red Stripe.
But we're not get nothing to drink.
Not yet, but soon. But the question you ask as to how do you increase yield, I think it actually goes back to one of the questions or one of the topics you mentioned earlier, and Charles alluded to it. I think it's very important that you have to focus on what is important and what you can do, both in terms of quantity and quality, that's going to make you able to have a world-class product. We can't be everything to everybody. We have 3 million people, we have a relatively limited land space, and of course our land space has to have not just farmland, has to have land for livestock, and of course we have to keep some space for the people too. So what we have to do, and what I believe we have to do, if you want to export successfully and export world-leading brands or products, you're going to have to focus. Ideally, I believe you actually look at one of two things. You're either looking at a world-class product, whether it be because of the ingredients, the terroir, whatever it is that you can do in Jamaica that nobody else can do. I think you mentioned ginger. Ginger is actually one of the products where we have an opportunity to differentiate. The other Sean also mentioned peppers. Scotch bonnet is something that we should be able to do at scale if we focus our efforts. Obviously, at Red Stripe, we don't do ingredients, we do products. And what we actually have is we have a world-class brand in Red Stripe beer. So that is one way that you can focus and get success in exporting. Once you have had that success, and then once you actually have the resources, maybe you can ask Mr. Lawson, I don't know if he does this, but one of the things that has to become apparent at some point, if you want to gain world-class scale, you have to have world-class products, and you have to use world-class processes. So, sorry, this is a circuitous way of getting back to your point as to how we were able to improve yield in our cassava farm. We, as you know, are a Heineken company, and we actually were able to benefit from the overseas expertise of our colleagues to help improve some of these yields. Obviously, the techniques that we use in Jamaica are techniques that have been proven elsewhere, adapted to local conditions. And that marriage between, let's say, the local and the foreign is what has helped us be able to increase yields.
I like the sound of it. I know it is happening. It is important to happen. But how will a company like yours, for instance, with the best practices that you have, sit with policymakers, or have you tried to say, look, here are the best practices, here's what you can do in your own agricultural sector to increase the yield if Sean needs more peppers and if the ginger, because our ginger taste profile is the best really in the world in terms of the flavor. So what can your group or your organization do to make that a reality?
Well, it would be hard for us, again, being transparent, it would be hard for us to do that with ginger, because ginger is not necessarily...
No, I'm not asking you to do it, I'm asking, how can you get government to adopt some of your best practices in RADA? Make us just talk it straight.
Well, I'm not quite sure that we're actually empowered to tell the government what to do. What we do know is, and we do have, obviously, relationship with government stakeholders, and in my opinion, they have, in most cases, been quite receptive to any partnerships that we suggest. What I would really suggest in a case like that is that I think it's more incumbent upon an organization like RADA to go and look at some of the examples of excellence that we do have in Jamaica and see how they can partner.
So, Minister Charles, you need to have a meeting with Mr. Wallace and have your RADA people come and look at the best practices that Red Stripe is employing to increase its yield. It's not difficult to do, it's not rocket science, and probably that may help us in terms of the future forwarding practices that EXIM Bank needs to have. I'm going to come back to you, Charles, because the tea story is such a unique niche market, and we are competing with it globally. If you say that 65% of your revenues actually comes from exports, that's phenomenal when you think about it. What are some of the other niche markets you think Jamaica could compete with internationally?
Oh, certainly, definitely. I mean, we have a lot of mangoes here that we waste a lot of. I mean, right now it's mango season, and everywhere you walk, you know, it's there wasted. What can we do with that? Something value added. We can compete with that. Things like cocoa. We have the best bottled water in the world, or best water in the world. Why can't we bottle that and sell it in some very premium places? And I say premium because I think we're wedded to the idea of competing with a $1 and $2 type product. If we can get to sell premium products in markets that are well developed and at least get 1% of that market, that can drastically change the lives of every Jamaican.
Well, you know
if
what's
we
funny?
do that.
I was looking at some data recently, and the top 10 wealthiest businesses in the world that made money during the pandemic, number 3 was luxury items. It was
agree with
Mr.
you.
Arnault, who owns Louis Vuitton, Hennessy, who owns the other brands like Givenchy, and Dior. And he made the most money, basically, and grew the most because people like luxury. So you are right. If we market ourselves as high-end, possibly.
Our coffee is a good example
Our
of
coffee
that.
is a good example. But I don't know that we're marrying the coffee in a way, and certainly have the kind of production. Because the high mountain coffee is one thing for the luxury, but you have low mountain coffee, which could be used as the raw materials for cosmetics, which
Right.
caffeine is a great anti-aging product. So those are some of the niches you speak about. And Sean was speaking about them too, in terms of picking those winners that we can compete in. Do you believe that the argument of food security, because I hear it bantered about a lot, that we have to have our own food security and grow everything for ourselves locally, is that possible?
I think we're too interconnected as a world and as a global space, and I think that competitiveness in itself means that you're not always going to get that happening. I think we have to sit and carve out for ourselves and say, what are some of the critical items that we need to provide for our people? And look at our vulnerabilities and say, we can't allow these things to happen. We look at what is happening in Ukraine and Russia right now, that global catastrophe I like to call it, and how it has impacted supply chains, and now people are on the brink of starvation and hunger because so much of the world's wheat come from that space.
And oil,
And oil.
cooking oil.
We have to begin to think of the fact that as a developing country, we are more at risk, and what are some of the things we can do to get our own industries developed so that we can feed our people. We know what our people like to eat. We know that we have some arable land. Can we set that aside and decide that we're going to go full on with that? Do we get the communities involved? You know, you talk about policymakers, and it's something that bothers me sometimes. I don't think we reach out enough to the people at the very, very grassroots level in the communities and sit and have a conversation, because in that conversation, you'll get a number of solutions. And when they own the solutions, then you get a much more progressive,
Purpose-driven acceptance.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
And if we do that in policy making, we would turn things
If you
around.
listen to my people in my constituency, for example, about water solutions, we'd have fixed the water solutions long time. But we keep taking this top-down approach.
Right.
People know where the water is, and know basic ways to get it there. And if you gave them the money, it would have fixed long time. Finally, Sean, tell viewers how Red Stripe has been doing coming out of the pandemic, and what are some of the things that you're looking to do in the next quarter, for instance?
Okay, well, I think we mentioned earlier what are the global industries that have increased during the pandemic. Luckily, beverages in general have been able to maintain their market share during the pandemic. Of course, we understand that many of our consumers and customers suffered considerable pain, and we are empathetic and sympathetic towards them. What we can say is that, luckily, gonna knock on wood, it does appear as if hopefully we've seen the worst of the pandemic. We believe that we're probably entering a phase of, call it accommodation with the virus. And I think that's going to allow us to get back to doing some of the things that we have done in the past that as a society really enjoy.
Drink more beer?
Well,
have more events?
When I was actually thinking more about events, more so than just
Lisa,
drinking more.
Add some tea in there, Lisa.
Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Pleasure.
I'm really gratified to hear about what you're both doing. And I mean, I read up about what you're doing, and kudos to you in terms of what's happening. And I really hope that your company will grow further, both of you, and redound to the best interest of Brand Jamaica and the people in Jamaica. Because at the end of the day, it's about our people, and about how we can make their lives a lot better with the kinds of production that you're doing. So, stay with us. We are going to wrap up in the next segment, but come back because we have two other producers and manufacturers that you would want to hear from. I hope you've been enjoying it so far, and as I say to you, look up Jamaica Teas. Buy the product. I know some of you buy it already, and I don't need to encourage you to do this one. I mean, that's like a...
Encourage them anyway.
I encourage you to look at what Red Stripe is doing in terms of its agricultural production. See you in the next segment. Thank you. Hi, welcome back, and this is our fourth and final segment of our Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association Export Month activities. And we've been having some really good discussions, if you've been tuning in, with our manufacturers and our producers, many of whom are exporting, and also spoken to the EXIM Bank, who basically gave some good advice as to how to get money to grow your export business. In this segment, I want to focus on the organization, the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association. You may hear about it, but you're not clear on its mandate and its policies. And beside me, I have the executive director of the organization, Ms. Kamisha Blake, who has been doing a fantastic job in managing events and really implementing solution-oriented programs to help manufacturers in the country. And then over to her left is a gentleman who I have so much admiration for and respect. He is the president of the organization, Mr. John Mafood, a man of very little words, but when he speaks, you have to pay it some reverence. So I want to welcome both of you. I want to start with you first, Kamisha. How has National Exporters Month been for Jamaica?
It has been a wonderful month. We started off May 1st, and actually, yes, we're in June, but it's because of the number of activities that we have had. We've had several training workshops. We have been to the Dominican Republic Embassy, where we had dialogue with the ambassador about how to improve trade between the countries. Likewise, we had a breakfast forum, which we had Minister Hill, where he spoke about some of the policies and the work that the ministry will be doing to help to grow manufacturing. So it has been a very fulfilling month, and yes, here we are to wrap it up.
Okay, great. John, people hear about this organization, but it's not clear that it actually has practical and pragmatic programs that you put in place. What are the policies of the organization, and what are some of the things that you're moving to fast track to make sure that we become more export driven and manufacturing oriented in the country?
Thanks, Lisa. We have about 450 members, Kamisha.
Almost 500 now.
Almost 500.
Yes.
And most of them are small manufacturers. 70% of them are. And so our focus has to be on how to build those manufacturers and help them. And so we put on a number of programs for the small manufacturers, whether it is working on their behalf for problems that they have with different agencies of the government, whether it is different courses that we put on for them. Basically, our work, our focus is to try and help them in what they're doing and making their life easier and helping them to see opportunities.
That's great. And who are some of the manufacturers? I know that you also help in helping them to get funding. So, Kamisha, you want to speak a little bit about that aspect of it?
All right, so a lot of what we do is through partnerships. For example, we have a partnership with the Development Bank of Jamaica where we help our members to get voucher for technical assistance. These are programs where they can get capacity building. Likewise, we have an MOU with the EXIM Bank of Jamaica where our members are able to access financing at a more feasible rate. We also have an MOU with the Bureau of Standards of Jamaica where our members are able to get discounts on the services that they have to offer. Likewise, we also implement the Export Max program in conjunction with JAMPRO and the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. So a lot of what we do is in partnership with other organizations because, yes, it does take quite a bit of funding. So what we do is to just partner with other entities that are able to offer these services to our members.
Great. John, what are some of the hindrances for manufacturing in Jamaica? Why aren't we exporting more? Why aren't we manufacturing more? What do we need to do?
Before I say, I touch on that, I want to say there are two areas where we're working for our members. One has to do with pension funds. Our members have about 70,000 employees. We are trying to find a way, working with different pension fund managers, to find a solution for our members where they can, without too much cost, get pension funds for their membership. Because we want to make sure that when people retire from working, they don't only have to work, they don't only have to rely on the state NIS. The other thing we're working on is what, Kamisha, the memorandum of association, memorandum of understanding with the Jamaica Stock Exchange to get, we hope, another 30 or 40 companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange who are small companies. And those are two big issues we're working on now. I want to also say to you that as I was coming down today, I was thinking there are some good things happening in Jamaica. One is the dollar financial IPO that just happened. It was 15,000 shareholders, $5.2 billion of money that was going into that IPO. That shows us that our investors in Jamaica are no longer just looking at putting their money in the bank or treasury bills. There's money out there to be invested in Jamaican companies, and I welcome private companies to think about going on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The other thing that happened, we heard that the May inflation rate was only 0.3%. That is an excellent achievement. We're seeing the inflation rate in Jamaica coming down, and at that rate, we will be able to have return to we are at single digits, but return to 5 or 6% inflation, which may mean, hopefully, that the Bank of Jamaica will not have to increase interest rates anymore. And the final thing I want to mention is that the Jamaican dollar has stabilized. It's now at 153.5. That is the same rate that it was in January 2021. That means that The Bank of Jamaica is doing a good job. It means that companies can look forward to planning their business and look forward to a stable economy in terms of interest rates, in terms of inflation, in terms of the foreign exchange rate.
Well, you and I can have a separate discussion about that after, especially with the U.S. Fed saying that they're going up. But, Kamisha, before I get back to him, because he didn't really answer my two questions earlier, you have a magazine to launch.
Yes.
You want to tell people where they can find the magazine, what's in the magazine, how the magazine can help them?
Definitely, Lisa. So for National Exporters Month, we produced an e-magazine, which is on issue. It is a matter of just acknowledging some of our brands, celebrating the successes, telling the stories. There's some lovely stories in there, Lisa. And I want to tell you thanks too. You have an article in there as well. So I can just give you an example. We have two stories from Export Max, from Benlar, and likewise from Spring Garden Processors, that when you sit and read those stories, you can just feel that level of success.
So where can people find the link to the magazine? Is it on your social media pages? Is there a website?
Yes, it's on our Instagram and likewise on our Facebook page. So I believe that we'll be dropping that right now in our link while we have a feed. But if you can just go on the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters site, you will also see it.
Is Stephen on the live?
Yes, Stephen is also on the live.
Okay, great. Stephen Dawkins from Wisinko is also here, and he's actually out in Guyana. So we are beaming him in. Stephen, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you
Oh,
very clear.
great.
I'm seeing you very, very clear as well.
Oh,
Very good.
well, I can't see you. But I'm sure you're fine. So, you know, you and I have been speaking about a number of things, and I know how passionate you are about production and manufacturing. Since John didn't answer my earlier two questions, I'm going to ask you. What do you think Jamaica needs to do to encourage and incentivize more people to manufacture so that we can become world leaders in products that we know we can?
Well, one of the things that I've always said, and thank you very much, Lisa, for joining me in, because I am actually where export takes place. I'm talking from my hotel room, and this is what exporting looks like, right? So I'm here, this is an everyday thing for me, day in, day out, different hotels and so on. But essentially, what I believe is that everything that you do, and where capital is concerned, that an investment is concerned, it must be profit oriented. And if we can get exports to be more profitable or more attractive, I believe that more exporters, more persons will export, more companies will export or invest more in exporting, because that's what I think it really is. So if we can see where it becomes far more profitable, that's what I think should do. And where government is concerned, I think it's that incentive program, that support initiative that needs to take place. What is that? I can't tell you that what it is, but it's that thing that the investors, business people, that must see export as a profitable business.
Well, probably tax credits. I mean,
well,
the tourism industry gets tax breaks. The BPO got tax breaks. Small manufacturers, John, do you think that they should be encouraged and incentivized if they're going into export markets to get the very similar incentives?
I would say so. You know, we don't bother beating the government up on it because we gather that they don't, you know, because of the economic situation we're in and so on, there's not a lot of money to go around. But certainly many countries incentivize their exporters by giving credit for exports, by helping with R&D and so on. You know, I personally would like to see a minister of export as opposed to it coming under just the Minister of Industry and Commerce. It needs that type of focus because the Ministry of Industry and Commerce is covering a lot of different things. And I think until we get to that stage, you know, the minister will say, well, we have JAMPRO, which is effectively what's, you know, the area that looks after exports. But I think it has to be more focused than that. Going back to your question, which I didn't answer, here is Wisinco in Guyana selling sweet water and selling bottled water. They dominate the market in Jamaica. Anything that you can sell in Jamaica, you can sell in Trinidad or Guyana. Guyana is going to be one of the most powerful countries in the Caribbean. We should all be there, getting in on the ground floor, so that when they become the richest country in the Caribbean, that all our products are there. And so that is really the message. It's not so much the product, but to do what Wisinco is doing, is being in the marketplace, working hard, getting enthusiastic. That's what our manufacturers need.
Thank you. Lisa, if I can just jump in here, though. The JMEA,
giving you 30 seconds.
Oh, sure. The JMEA would have done a manufacturer's growth strategy, which we want the government, we want the minister to own that as well. We would have done the Omnibus Incentive Act in 2014, that there are still 2 sections of that still need to be, yes, so the Large Scale Industry Act and the Pioneer Industry Incentives. So those are 2 things that we definitely need to come on board to incentivize
part of it was
manufacturers.
actually dealt with in terms of one of the things that you were promoting. So that has now been off the table and dealt with. So the other 2 need to be fast-tracked through.
Definitely.
Stephen, I'm giving you a minute to say your final thoughts, and then I'm going to wrap up.
And John actually said it. Exporting is not easy, right? And it is what you call boots on the ground in every single market that we need to go in. Right now, when I decided to come to Guyana, you normally do your research and you said, you know, I'm in beverages. Which country export the most beverages into Guyana? And I look at the trade report, I realize that Trinidad is the largest exporter of beverages into Guyana. And it's 31%. And I said to myself, what is it that Trinidad has over us as a manufacturing company and stuff? They have strong government support, they have strong incentives.
And
yes,
low energy costs.
They do benefit from electricity costs, but certainly I think it's something that we need to focus on. And what I can say is that,
go ahead.
What I can, it's that just get into the market and just drive the business. That's all I can say. Right.
Thank you, John, Kamisha. Thank you, and thank you to the viewers who have been paying attention and sticking around for the live. My name is Lisa Hanna. It's been a pleasure being the ambassador for National Exporters Month. I have always been a supporter and a big proponent of exporting. It is a way we are going to grow wealth in this country if we pick winners and sell to the rest of the world, and to be more focused in how we harmonize our policies to create more manufacturers, not only at the beginning of the value chain, but certainly those processors who can use the throughput that is being produced here. And also in terms of services. We have a lot that we must do if we are going to compete internationally in the ways that I know we can. So thank you for joining us, and this will be on a link on the JMEA sites that you can go back to. It will be on YouTube if you need to go back and look at some of the names and the stories. And make sure you check out the National Exporters magazine from the organization. It has some really, really good advice in there. So on behalf of all of us here, thank you. Have a safe night, and whatever you do, make sure you do it with passion and have fun. Thanks.
Wonderful. Wonderful.